I am about to crash out. This guy gets eaten by a snake, puked up alive, and then winks at Jennifer Lawrence. Hollywood sees this and said, yep, that's totally realistic. And that's not even the dumbest death I'm gonna be talking about today in this video. These are some of the most unrealistic, downright stupidest kills in horror movies I have ever seen before. Let's talk about it though. So here's what happens in Anaconda. Jon Voight plays this snake hunter guy who's basically a complete psychopath. He spends the whole movie being weird and creepy and doing this accent that sounds like he learned Spanish from a broken Google Translate bot. Then the giant snake eats him. Now, most movies would end it there. Guy gets eaten, movie moves on. But not Anaconda. The snake decides to throw him up like a drunk college student after too much tequila. And when he comes out, covered in snake guts and looking like he went through a blender, what does he do? He opens his eyes and winks at Jennifer Lopez. That wink wasn't even in the original script. He just decided to do it because apparently he thought the movie wasn't ridiculous enough already. The director probably saw it and went, yeah, that's perfect. Instead of maybe you should do another take where you don't look like you're flirting after being digested. For anyone curious, all of these movies came out after the big craze of Jaws. They took scary animal, made it big, and made it scary. I don't know if you've seen Jaws before, but nobody's winking at each other after being puked up by a giant great white shark. Like, the whole thing about Jaws is that it's a serious movie. It's a scary big fish. But no, we're gonna make our own version with the big snake. It's an anaconda, and we're just gonna wink at people. But here's the thing about getting swallowed by a giant snake. It's not like sliding down a water slide. This isn't fucking snakes and ladders. First, a snake has to crush you to death. That's how they kill things. They wrap you and squeeze you until your heart stops beating. Your ribs break, your spine probably snaps, and you're dead before you even start going down the throat. But let's just ignore all of that because it's a big snake and maybe it can eat you in one bite. Then we gotta talk about the whole swallowing part. A snake's throat is basically a meat grinder. Your shoulders would get crushed trying to fit through. Your arms would probably break, and once you're inside, there is no air. None. It's not like being in a cave. It's more like being buried alive in a really gross, slimy coffin. Oh, and snake stomachs have acid in them, genius. Strong acid, the kind that starts eating away at your skin immediately. Your eyes would be burning, your mouth would be on fire. But sure, this guy is totally fine and gives a little flirty wink. What do you think it's gonna do? You're gonna flirt this girl and somehow get laid? Dude, you're dead. Why are you flirting? You should be screaming in pain. It's crazy that the thing he's thinking about most as he's going down a snake's mouth is ass. The whole process of being regurgitated is basically the snake throwing up with the force of a freight train. You'd come flying out like a friggin' cannonball. There wouldn't be any gentle, oh look, I'm alive moment. You'd be a broken, acid-burning mess. But John just opens his eyes, sees J-Lo, and gives her that wink like he's saying, hey girl, how you doing? You wanna come in this snake with me? Right after being snake food. And speaking of things that make no sense and don't work, let's talk about garage door safety. Look, garage doors are boring. They go up, they go down. Sometimes they make an annoying grinding noise at 6 in the morning when your neighbor leaves for work. They're not exactly known for being murder weapons. But the people who made Scream looked at a garage door and thought, you know what this needs? We need to make this into a torture device. It's basically a guillotine, right? It goes up and down. It's not a blade, but same concept. So they had this character, Tatum, get stuck in a dog door, and then the garage door just lifts her up until her head gets crushed. Problem solved, character dead, movie continues. Except garage doors don't actually do that. They can't. Since 1993, every garage door opener sold in America has to have a safety feature. If the door hits something while it's closing, it stops. If it can't close properly, it reverses. If there's too much weight, the motor gives up. These things are designed by people who know that kids exist and that kids are dumb and they like to die around garage doors. I don't make the rules, but for some reason, you just throw a kid in a garage door and immediately it wants to end its life. The motor in most garage doors is maybe half a horsepower. That's not exactly industrial strength. The whole system is built to move a door, not a full-grown person. If you tried to hang from a garage door, it would either stop immediately or the clutch would slip and you just hang there feeling stupid. Now, let's say somehow the safety features all failed at once. Let's pretend the motor could actually lift Tatum. Even then, she wouldn't die from a broken neck. Getting slowly lifted upwards isn't the same as getting jerked around. She'd probably just get choked as the door pressed against her throat. Not pleasant, but not the instant neck snap the movie shows. But none of this matters because the motor would quit as soon as it felt her weight. Garage door openers are built to move a door, not people. There are not cranes. If you put too much load on them, they just stop working. The worst thing that would happen is Tatum gets stuck and has to wait for someone to help her out of the dog door, which would be embarrassing, sure, but way less dramatic than what the movie went with. But you know, at least with the doggy door and the garage door, you could like theoretically fit into it. But kitchen drain pipes, that's a whole nother level of absurd. What kind of person watches The Blob and thinks, you know what would be really scary? Getting sucked down a kitchen drain, because that's what happens to this guy George. He's just working in his diner kitchen, probably wondering why his Tuesday is going so badly and that his wife is divorcing him, when the Blob grabs him and yanks him down the sink drain. The whole thing. All of him, through a hole that's maybe 3 inches wide. And now I know 3 inches is a lot. I know 3 inches is a very large unit of measurement. I get it. But have you ever looked at your kitchen sink drain? It's small. Really small. You probably have trouble getting food scraps to go down it half the time. But somehow, George fits. His head goes through, his shoulders, his whole torso. His legs start kicking around in the air before they disappear too. Now, I am no doctor,
or even someone that is smart,
but I'm pretty sure human skulls are wider than 3 inches. Last time I checked, shoulders are definitely bigger than sink drains. The whole human skeleton situation doesn't really compress that much. Your ribs aren't made of Play-Doh, and your spine isn't flexible tubing. But the Blob apparently has some kind of magic liquefaction power that turns people into human smoothies, which it does, except it doesn't really show that happening on screen. And it's shown to be a lot less quick than what happens in this scene. George stays George-shaped until at the very end. His legs are still leg-shaped when they go down. There's no melting and no dissolving really shown. He just somehow gets smaller. Even if the Blob could turn George into liquid, where is all that liquid going? Kitchen plumbing isn't designed to handle a whole person's worth of person. The pipes under your sink are maybe 4 inches wide at best. They've got bends and joints and connections. One adult human would clog up your entire building's plumbing system, and your landlord would be very pissed off. You know, take it from me to be the guy talking on YouTube about the ethics around pissing off your landlord in the Blob movie. What am I doing with my life? Have you ever tried to unclog a sink when it's backed up with hair and food? Now imagine trying to explain to a plumber that your drain is clogged because someone got liquefied and sucked down. They probably think that's a setup of some weird, kinky, B-list porno or something. They're gonna walk out of there unless they stay. Then you should probably report them to the Better Business Bureau, because no plumbers should be taking up offers on that. They don't deserve to be in business. At the end of the day, the whole thing takes maybe 10 seconds in the movie. 10 seconds to turn a full-grown adult into drain-sized chunks and flush him away. Your garbage disposal takes longer than that to handle a leftover salad. But sure, whatever. Unfortunately though, drains are nothing compared to airborne sharks with chainsaws. Yes, we're talking about it. I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, Chupacabra, it's just Sharknado. It's not supposed to be realistic. I get that. I really do. But somehow Sharknado takes every bad idea and somehow make it worse. The hero, Finn, really funny name right there, sees a flying shark coming at him, grabs a chainsaw and jumps directly into its mouth while it's midair during a tornado. That's not even the dumb part. The dumb part is that he survives getting swallowed. Then he cuts his way out from the inside. Then he reaches back in and pulls out another person who is apparently just hanging out in there perfectly fine. Chainsaws need gas and oxygen to run. Inside a shark, you get neither. The moment Finn goes down that throat, his chainsaw would die. Even if it didn't, sharks' stomachs aren't exactly roomy. You can't swing a chainsaw around in there. There's no space. You'd be curled up in a little ball, probably unconscious from being crushed by the shark's jaws. Great white sharks don't swallow people whole anyway. They bite chunks off. In the real world, Finn would be in pieces before he ever got to the stomach. Those teeth aren't just there for decoration. They're designed to cut through seal blubber and bone. A human torso does not stand a chance. But let's pretend we don't live in reality, and somehow Finn makes it inside intact with a working chainsaw. Shark skin is tough, really tough. Cutting through it from the inside with no leverage while you're being squeezed by stomach muscles is next to impossible. You need to brace yourself against something to get any cutting power. What's he bracing against? The other wall of the stomach? And then there's Nova, the other person he rescues. She was swallowed by the same shark earlier with no protection, no chainsaw, no nothing. She would be if we took her to a doctor, she would be diagnosed with the very dead disease. Sharks don't have waiting rooms inside their stomach. They have acid and no oxygen and crushing pressure. But Nova's just chilling in there like she's been waiting for an Uber. When Finn pulls her out, she's unconscious but otherwise fine. No acid burns, no crush injuries, just a little sleepy. The movie shows Finn cutting a neat hole in the shark and crawling out like he's exiting a tent. In reality, if you could somehow cut through a shark from the inside, you'd probably hit vital organs, blood vessels, and the thing would be thrashing around and probably crush you against its own ribs. But sure, Finn just pops out and saves the day, and Nova wakes up ready for Sharknado 2. But you know, at least I could somewhat believe it because sharks are supposed to be dangerous. Unfortunately, we need to talk about the Gremlins. Miss Deagle has a stairlift in her house. You know, one of those chairs that slowly carries old people up and down stairs because walking is hard. They move at the speed of molasses. They're designed for people who need help getting around and also move at the speed of molasses. But the Gremlins mess with it somehow and turn it into a rocket ship. When Miss Deagle sits down, the thing takes off. It zooms up the stairs so fast, she's probably experiencing G-forces. Then it launches her straight through a second-story window and she crashes to the ground outside. The old lady is dead. Now, stair lifts are built by people who understand that their customers are not looking for thrill rides. These are mobility devices for people who have trouble with stairs. The last thing anyone wants is their grandmother getting shot out of her house like a cannonball. Although, if you've got a relative that maybe isn't the nicest to you, might not be a bad idea. Someone just saying you can take that idea and make $1 million business. I don't know who's got relatives that are kind of mean to them, just saying. Anyways, the motors in these things are tiny. They're designed to creep along at a safe, comfortable pace. Even if you somehow supercharge the motor, the whole track system would probably break before it could launch anyone anywhere. Plus, stair lifts have speed controllers built in. You can't just make them go faster by feeding them more electricity or messing up their circuits. That's not how motors work. It would be like trying to make your ceiling fan go supersonic by plugging it in twice. The fan would just burn out. Even if somehow the motor could push the chair that fast, what happens at the top of the stairs? Stair lifts have stops, physical barriers that prevent the chair from flying off the end of the track. Ms. Deagle would smash into that stop and probably get thrown forward a little bit, but she wouldn't sail through the air like she got shot from a cannon. The movie shows her flying in a perfect arc through the window. That's not how physics work. For her to get that kind of distance and height, the staircase would need to work as a catapult. It would have to fling her upward at exactly the right angle with exactly the right force. Again, stairlifts don't do that. They just stop at the top and wait for you to get off. But I guess elderly woman gets stuck at the top of the stairs and needs help getting down. Doesn't make for great horror movie material. It's way less dramatic than human projectile launches. But now you're probably thinking, Chupacabro, it's just a movie. Why are you crashing out? And for that I say, it's my channel and I think it's funny to point out this obviously crazy stuff. And if you enjoy that, you should like and subscribe. If you don't enjoy that, you're just gonna get madder if you continue watching this video. So, flying grandmas are nothing compared to exploding heads though. There's this scene in Scanners where a guy just stares really hard at another guy and makes his head explode. Not like metaphorically explode, actually explode. The whole thing just pops like a water balloon filled with brain matter. The scanner doesn't touch him, doesn't use any tools, and just concentrates really intensely and boom. head bits everywhere. Your brain can't explode from thinking too hard. That's not how brains work. Sure, you might get a headache if you try to understand calculus or remember where you put your car keys, but your skull doesn't just detonate because someone's giving you a mean look. The human skull is actually pretty tough. It's designed to protect your brain from getting damaged when you do dumb stuff like walk into glass doors or try to open cabinets with your face. Both things I am guilty of doing. It can take a decent amount of impact without cracking. For a head to actually explode, you need some serious pressure buildup inside the skull. But there's no mechanism for that to happen from external psychic forces. Even if telepathy was real, which it's not. Subscribe to the channel! That's not real. I just proved it. It's not real. That didn't work. It couldn't create physical pressure inside someone's head. The movie shows the head going off like a small bomb, chunks flying in every direction, blood spraying on the walls. That's explosive force, not brain force. You'd need actual explosives to get that kind of result. And the guy getting his head blown up doesn't even look surprised. He just sits there while his head slowly builds up pressure and then explodes. In real life, if your head was somehow building up enough pressure to explode, you would probably notice. Maybe get a really bad headache first or pass out from the pain. You wouldn't just sit there calmly waiting for your skull to pop. The whole thing happens in about 5 seconds. Stare, concentrate, explode. No buildup, no warning signs. Just instant head removal via mind powers. After the explosion, there's nothing left above the neck. Just shoulders and a mess. The movie treats this as a totally normal scanner behavior. Just another Tuesday at the psychic research facility. But real heads don't work that way. They're not pressure cookers. They don't have internal explosion mechanisms. The worst thing concentrated thinking can do to your head is make you text your ex, which is annoying, but significantly less dramatic than spontaneous explosions. So yeah, mind powers are fake, but punches are real physics we gotta talk about. Because in Killer Klowns from Outer Space, Shorty, the alien clown, punches a guy's head clean off. One uppercut and the head just pops off the shoulders and lands in a trash can. The body falls over. Head in the garbage, body on the ground. Mission accomplished. This is not how punching works. Human heads are attached to bodies pretty securely. There's your spine, which is made of actual bone. There are muscles and ligaments holding everything together. There's skin, which is tougher than you think. You can't just knock someone's head off like you're opening a bottle cap. Professional boxers hit incredibly hard. Some of them can generate thousands of pounds of force with their punches, but even the strongest boxers in history have never accidentally decapitated anyone. They break jaws, sure. They can cause concussions, but heads stay attached. The problem is that punching delivers blunt force trauma, not cutting force. To remove a head, you need to cut through or tear through all the stuff connecting it to the body. A punch might break someone's neck, which can be fatal, but the head would still be attached by all the soft tissue. Even if Shorty had superhuman alien strength, physics still applies. The force from his punch would go in one direction, upward, since it's an uppercut, but the head doesn't just fly straight up. In the movie, it travels at an arc and lands perfectly in a trash can several feet away. That's not how momentum works. Plus, if you somehow generated enough force to rip someone's head off with a punch, what happens to the rest of that force? Guy's body would go flying in the opposite direction. You can't just remove a head and have the body politely fall straight down. That's not conservation of energy. The movie shows the head flying through the air like someone threw a basketball, but heads aren't basketballs. They're not designed for aerodynamic flight. A severed head would tumble and spin, not sail smoothly through the air and land upright in a container. And here's the thing that really bothers me about this scene. The biker literally asks for it. He says, "What are you gonna do? Knock my block off, buddy?" So Shorty does exactly that, which means either this alien clown has perfect literal interpretation skills, or the writers thought they were being very clever here. Either way, real punches don't work as head removal tools, no matter how hard you hit or how alien you are. So yeah, boxing is violent, but eye surgery really shouldn't be. LASIK surgery has more safety features than a nuclear power plant. The machines won't fire unless a doctor is present. They have eye tracking systems that shut down if you move. The lasers are designed to only remove tiny amounts of tissue at a time, and multiple safeguards exist specifically to prevent exactly what happens in Final Destination 5, which is why it's so impressive that the movie managed to break all of them at once. Olivia sits down for routine eye correction, and the machine basically turns into a death ray. The laser keeps keeps firing when she moves. It burns through her hand when she tries to block it. The doctor conveniently disappears right when everything goes wrong. Every single safety system fails at the same time, which I know is the point of Final Destination, but hear me out. Real LASIK lasers are cold lasers. They don't burn things. They don't create smoke or flames. They work by breaking molecular bonds, not by heating tissue. You could stick your finger in a LASIK beam and maybe get a small surface mark, but you wouldn't get a hole burned through your hand. The movie shows the laser cutting across her eyeball and onto her fingers, creating smoke and causing obvious burns. That's not what LASIK lasers do. They're precision instruments that remove microscopic layers of corneal tissue. They're not industrial cutting tools. Plus, LASIK procedures take maybe 30 seconds of actual laser time per eye. The machine knows exactly how many pulses to deliver and then it stops. It doesn't just keep firing indefinitely until someone turns it off. The computer controls the duration based on your prescription, and the eye tracking system is there for a reason. If your eye moves even slightly off the target, the laser pauses until you're realigned. The whole point is to avoid exactly what the movie shows, the laser hitting the wrong parts of your eye. Modern systems can track eye movement faster than you can blink. The power surge that supposedly causes the malfunction wouldn't make the laser more powerful. It would more likely just break the machine entirely. LASIK equipment is sensitive. A power surge would probably fry the electronics, not turn it into a super laser. After her eye gets destroyed by the malfunctioning equipment, Olivia stumbles around blind and falls out of a window to her death, which means death had to first make her get LASIK, then break multiple safety systems, then position her near an open window. That's a lot of coordination for what's supposed to be a random accident. But I guess woman has normal LASIK procedure with absolutely no complications doesn't make for an exciting horror movie. So we've learned that medical equipment has safeguards. What we haven't learned yet is that snake venom doesn't work in 2 seconds. Snake venom is not cyanide. It doesn't kill you in 30 seconds flat. But snakes on a plane, yes, we're talking about it, treats every snake bite like someone just chugged a bottle of bleach. Guy gets bitten on the toilet by a snake hiding in the bowl. 5 seconds later, he's dead. Woman gets bitten on the chest. 10 seconds later, she's dead. The whole plane turns into a snake bite death speed run where everyone's competing for the fastest time from fang to funeral. Even the deadliest snakes in the world take their time killing people. Black mambas, which are basically the Formula 1 cars of venomous snakes, still need about 20 minutes to kill someone. Maybe faster if you get a massive dose directly into a blood vessel, but we're still talking minutes, not seconds. Most snake venom works by either stopping your blood from clotting, which makes you bleed internally, or by shutting down your nervous system, which stops you from breathing. Both of these processes take time to work through your body. Venom has to circulate through your bloodstream and reach the organs it's designed to attack. The guy who gets bitten while using the bathroom would probably feel a sharp pain, maybe some immediate swelling around the bite, and then he'd have maybe 15 to 30 minutes to think about his life choices before things got really bad. Just plenty of time to finish his shit and call for help. The movie needs people to die quickly because otherwise the snakes would just be a medical emergency instead of a horror movie thread. Can't have passengers calmly applying first aid and waiting for the plane to land. That's not exciting enough. This is snakes on a plane. The woman who gets bitten on the chest has an even better chance of survival because most snake bites aren't even lethal. Snakes don't want to waste their venom on something they can't eat. A lot of defensive bites are dry bites, with little to no venom injected. Plus, snake venom is designed to work on snakes' normal prey: mice, birds, small mammals. Humans are way bigger than anything most snakes usually eat. We're not the target demographic for their poison delivery system. Even the largest snake on Earth, the Anaconda, which eats animals close to our size, doesn't even have venom because it's not even useful for it to do. It instead crushes and constricts its prey. But none of this matters because the movie needs its body count and doesn't have time for realistic venom pharmacology. So everyone dies instantly and the plane becomes a flying morgue instead of a flying hospital. So yeah, your random venom timing is pretty sloppy, but compared to perfect cube cutting, it doesn't even come close. Perfect squares. Every cut exactly the same size, every piece identical. The guy in cube gets diced into flawless geometric shapes that would make a math teacher proud. But razor wire doesn't work that way. Wire under tension wants to cut through soft stuff first and gets stuck on hard stuff. Your ribs aren't the same density as your stomach. Your spine is way tougher than your liver. A wire grid hitting a human body would not produce uniform results. But Cube shows this guy getting sliced into perfect cubes that stack neatly and then slide apart. Every piece is exactly the same size. Every cut goes all the way through. No wire gets stuck halfway through a bone. No piece is bigger or smaller than the others. That level of precision would require each wire to be moving at exactly the right speed with exactly the right tension for the specific point it hits the body. The spacing would have to be mathematically perfect. The timing would need to be synchronized down to the millisecond, and somehow every wire has to cut through completely different materials at exactly the same rate. Skin, muscle, fat, bone, cartilage, all slicing at identical speeds to maintain the grid pattern. Your femur is one of the strongest bones in your body. It can support thousands of pounds of force. A wire hitting that bone would either bounce off, get stuck, or require significantly more force to cut through than the wire cutting through soft tissue like your nose. Meanwhile, the wires cutting through your abdomen would zip right through organs and fat with almost no resistance. So you'd end up with some wires finishing their cuts while others are still grinding through bone. Not exactly the synchronized slicing the movie shows. Plus, once the first few cuts happen, the structural integrity of the body changes. Parts would start shifting and moving around. The remaining wires wouldn't line up properly with their targets. You'd get messy, uneven cuts instead of the perfect geometric shapes. The movie treats the human body as if it's made of uniform material, evenly distributed throughout. But contrary to popular belief, humans aren't blocks of cheese. We're complicated bags of different stuff that all react differently to being cut. Even if you could somehow engineer wires that could cut through everything at exactly the same rate, you need the person to remain perfectly still in exactly the right position. One step to the left and the whole grid pattern is off. But perfect cube humans make for better horror movie visuals than realistic mangled bodies. This whole video has been a crash out. Some of these are just so crazy. Horror movie directors, if you're watching this, just make your kills somewhat real and then make them cool. That's all I'm asking. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I'm just a dude on the internet with too much time on my hands, and you're just a person with even more time on their hands that wants to watch these types of videos. So if you enjoyed this video, you should probably like this video and subscribe to the channel so you get fed more of these videos in the future. Because if you don't do that, YouTube doesn't want to show you my channel. Comment down below other movies you want me to talk about, and if you want to watch another video just like this one, click the video on screen now.